This is the creepiest and scariest things that has happened to people while home alone. Part 1. And
You're watching 69 North Entertainment.
Here are just a few of the stories from people who have had some creepy or scary things happen to them while they were home alone. I once was watching Arachnophobia as a 13-year-old on Halloween. Went to go to bed, got a little nervous because of the movie, decided to just shake out my bedspread. Found a solid 3-inch wolf spider sitting like an Andes mint on my pillow. Slept in the bathtub that night. I don't know why that felt safe, but it did. I was in bed when I heard a rustle, looked around, saw nothing, laid back down. Heard a louder rustle, looked around, looked under the bed, laid back down with my heart in my throat. Something large landed on my face and chest. It was the stupid poster over my bed. To this day I'm proud I didn't soil myself. Sitai replies, "Don't feel too bad. When I moved into my first apartment I heard a loud thunk on the patio, followed by this weird scraping noise. It was late, and it freaked me out, so I walked towards the sliding glass door. I lived on the 3rd floor, so I knew the only thing that was getting to the patio had to be the Mothman or something. I threw open the blinds and the Mothman was on my patio, staring at me. I screamed. It was my own reflection in the glass. I am the Mothman." It was like 2 a.m., and I had to take my dog out to go to the bathroom. As I'm standing out in the yard, I notice there's this really big dude walking down the sidewalk towards my house. The big dude looks over toward me and screams, "Hey, come over here, right now." He sounded really pissed, and I definitely did not go over to him. I locked myself in the house and watched him from inside. He was pacing back and forth on the sidewalk just staring at my house and looked really mad. As I'm watching him, 2 cars pull up to the curb and a bunch of people get out and join him to stare angrily at my house. I'm very confused at this point because I don't have any enemies and I wasn't sure what all these people wanted with me. The guy who originally screamed at me starts walking toward my house and screams, "I said come over here. Right now." At that moment, my motion-activated light on my porch went on and I could see a giant goofy-looking dog sitting on my porch. The dog sprinted away when the light went on and the big dude went to chase him up the street. The people got back in the cars and chased after the dog too. As it turns out the big goofy dog was their family pet and it had escaped from their house. It saw me in the yard with my dog and was running towards me to play. I never even saw it until the light came on. The big dude was just yelling at his dog, not me. The people in the cars were his family members trying to help catch the dog. I actually saw them walking down the street a few days later and introduced myself. Both the dog and the man were very friendly. It was a happy ending for an initially creepy situation. I was awoken in the middle of the night to something pulling on my comforter at the foot of my bed. I look down the foot of my bed and see this 3 or 4 foot shadow figure trying to climb on my bed. I panicked thinking I was about to get murdered. I flipped on the light to find my 15-pound dog trying to drag my 4-foot teddy bear onto my bed. It was terrifying at the moment, now I just find it hilarious. Oh man. When I was 17 or 18 I slept on the floor on a futon mattress. One night I'm laying there trying to go to sleep and I hear this kind of swishing sound. So I ignore it. A few minutes later I hear it again. I really didn't want to get up, but I could not guess what was making the sound. I got up and turned on the light. Nothing scurried immediately. Thankfully the sound happened again and I could tell it was coming from the corner of the room. Then I saw it. The biggest wolf spider I'd ever seen. It was walking on a roll of brown wrapping paper. The sound was coming from this absolute unit of a spider walking on paper. It was so big that I could hear its footsteps. I really wanted to sleep and wanted it gone. How do you shoot the devil in the back? What if you miss? That's pretty much how it went. Swing and a miss and Spidey bro does the "get out of here." Except it's probably still in the room. I couldn't sleep that night without getting the crawling sensation repeatedly. I'm good with spiders now and would have left the majestic beast alone. Not that my flailing did anything but annoy it. The guy popped his head in my bedroom door, looked at me, and quickly left when he saw me. It was dark so assumed it was one of my housemates, and I was more concerned that they didn't knock before entering until I got up and realized the house was empty and nobody was home. Before we continue, now would be a good time to like this video and subscribe. You can also hit that bell so you will get notified when we publish new videos. I had a giant Bernese mountain dog. Thing never barked his whole life. Was the least aggressive animal I've ever met. Unless he was pawing at you for pets. Point is, calm, quiet and gentle. One night, I was home alone as a child, 9 to 10-ish. I honestly don't remember exactly. I hear a dog, after all it couldn't be mine, barking up a storm. Didn't think much of it. Until he was at the sliding glass door, all hair on end, barking his ass off. I let him in and he physically shoved me back, then stood between me and the door for 5 of the scariest minutes of my life. He just growled and barked the whole time. Wouldn't let me anywhere near the door. Then like a light he just turned around, licked me and laid down. I have no earthly clue what was out there, but it wasn't getting to me. I wasn't alone, but about 10 years ago, this time of year I was watching a movie, I heard something on our roof, and the television signal went out. I knew we have mice, but they've never made this much noise, and WTF with the TV? I'm totally thinking aliens. Then my girlfriend, who was asleep in our bedroom, starts yelling at our cat to be quiet. But the cat's with me. So I rush in the bedroom, and she's pissed, but as she wakes up she explains that it actually sounded like something was on the roof. I open our front door and all our Christmas lights are pulled off of our trees outside, so I immediately call the cops. The cops show and are kind of dismissive about the lights, but one cop comes in the house to get details and 2 other cops go to our backyard. The one cop is just half-assed getting info when the other cops excitedly come over the radio saying some kind of code stuff. The inside cop says stay here and runs out. A few minutes later he comes back and, now being apologetic, asks me to come with him. He shines his light at our roof and the satellite dish is hanging by the wire, ripped totally off the roof. Then he shows me a ladder from our shed leaning up against our fence and tells me the other 2 are in pursuit. Other cops show up, lights flashing, because why not? And there's a trail of broken stuff all over my neighborhood. Mailboxes, windshields, headlight, vases, etc. They didn't catch anybody that night, but a few days later they nab 3 meth kids and find all kind of stolen stuff in one of their mom's house. 3 meth kids rip down my lights, climb on my roof, and destroy my satellite dish in the middle of the night. As I'm laying on the couch watching TV late at night, I hear a tapping on the glass. I brush it off, only to have it happen again about 1 minute or so later. I turn to look out our sliding glass back door, which had always given me the creeps with no blinds or lighting in the backyard, to see of all things someone standing outside wearing a Scream costume. My mind started racing as to who it might be, perhaps one of my sister's friends? I wasn't about to go outside and find out. They slinked away into the darkness before I found my nerve. Turns out my 70-year-old grandma decided to scare the shit out of me. I was about 10 or 11 years old. We had woods behind our house. My parents were out one night and I heard a shriek from the woods. My blood ran cold and I called my parents immediately. While on the phone, the terrifying scream happened again from the woods and my mom could actually hear it on the phone. Later we figured out it was a fox. What does the fox say? Apparently, foxes scream like someone getting murdered. Half a man you are, replies. Yes. My wife and I were sleeping with the windows open one cool night in the summer. Side note, I'm a very light sleeper to the point where when my wife's breathing changes, I wake up. My wife is a heavy sleeper to the point where I accidentally elbowed her in the head and she didn't wake up. Around 3 a.m., I hear this bloody axe murderer shriek and my eyes shoot open. Being ripped from a deep sleep, I'm having an out-of-body experience. My brain is trying to focus and process what my ears heard while asleep. My body is being pumped full of adrenaline. My wife woke up too and is super unaware of what's happening. I hear it again, closer, and again. By now I pull up the external cameras and see a family of foxes playing in my yard. The screaming continues for a good half an hour before a police car pops a quick siren to scare them off. Didn't sleep much that night due to adrenaline. Crashed hard later that day. A random man knocking on my parents' front door repeatedly and asking me by name to open it. This was before Ring doorbells were a thing, so I actually had to go to the door to see who it was. I looked through the peephole and saw a man that I didn't know standing right in front of the door, looking right into the peephole. I remember he had some gray hair, but was balding, and was wearing a brown flannel. He kept asking for me and banging on the door. Being a scared kid, I ran away from the door and called my mom crying. By the time my parents got home, the guy was gone. It's been more than a few years since it happened, and my parents just recently told me that it was probably my great uncle that I've never met, looking for someone to borrow money from. When I was about 11 or 12, I was home alone when a creepy sounding dude called my house and asked where my dad was. Like an idiot, I told him he wasn't home. The guy's response was to started laughing and then tell someone else he says he's not home. The other dude in the background started creepily laughing as well, and then the line went dead. I ended up grabbing 2 hockey sticks and waiting by the front door until my parents returned a couple hours later. Terrifying and weird. I was a 21-year-old female and stayed alone at my family's mountain cabin. It was in the middle of the week, and the other cabins in the area were empty. Around midnight, I saw headlights from a car coming up the driveway. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I ran and hid. I went upstairs to look through a window very carefully from a dark room, so I would be very difficult to spot. I saw 3 strange men standing outside. They were banging on the door. I was absolutely terrified. Luckily, they didn't try to break in, but I did not feel safe and could not sleep that night. It later turned out that they were Polish carpenters that were coming to work on the cabin, as they had done several times before. My dad forgot to tell me that they would be coming and forgot to tell them that I was there. They had an agreement to stay in the cabin while working on it, but instead, they had to spend the first night in their car. Do you have a scary or creepy story? Write it in the comments section down below. And maybe it will make its way into one of our videos in the future.
Thank you for watching 69 North Entertainment. Have a good rest of the day or night. And remember to like and subscribe.